Welcome to another edition of the Artist Bloc podcast. I am your host, Watricia Schuler, and today we have some incredibly talented and interesting guests. They're filmmakers, artists, founder of GSO Vibes. Welcome to the show, Kevin and Andrea.
Thank
Hello,
you.
thank you.
Yeah. I'm so happy that y'all are going to be here today, and I'm happy to get started and talk to you all. So, I want to know, how did you both discover your love for the arts? And when did you discover it? Do you remember?
You can go first.
Okay. Well, I started out as a musician uh, with the guitar,
Nice.
and I ended up going to school for guitar. And after I graduated, was I moved to China
Wow.
to teach guitar and to perform.
So you were really
Um,
good because you were
yeah,
going to teach
my
guitar.
my yeah. So the
Yeah,
arts were sort of my whole career,
gotcha.
um, up until COVID.
Mm,
And then at that point, I came back from China and I was looking for a new sort of thing to do. I
mm-hmm,
kind of didn't want to start gigging again, like as a guitarist
mm-hmm,
during COVID. Um, so I had always been into photography.
mm-hmm.
I started film in pretty much in Greensboro,
Okay.
just playing around with the camera and making short films, and it
Mm-hmm.
turned into a business.
That's so interesting that you were a musician and you kind of migrated over into the visual world. How did you teach yourself to do it? Was it like a natural gift? Were you researching? Did you have a mentor? Like, what
Yeah,
was that?
I spent a lot of the time in quarantine watching YouTube videos about how to use a camera, just from using all the different settings
Yeah.
to getting better and better photos of
Yeah.
getting better light,
Nice.
and just watching hours of tutorials. It
Yeah.
was kind of the thing that got me into having
Yeah.
some ability with it.
Gotcha. YouTube University.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
We love
Nice.
it.
Yes. Oh, so Andre, how did you get started? And
So, I've been drawing and painting and doing visual mediums of various kinds since I was like a little kid. Like my mom has this story that she loves to tell people that at 2 years old, I stole all of her lipsticks and drew on all of the walls, and that's
wow.
how she knew that I was an artist. That's what she
Yeah.
says. Um, but so yeah, I've been in the visual art realm for a while now, but it's always been drawing and painting. And sometime in high school, I did a project on conceptual art.
Mhm.
The Probably one of the most iconic examples of conceptual art is Marcel Duchamp's like upside down urinal, if you know what I'm talking
I
about.
have no idea, but I'm gonna look it up.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a anyway, it's a piece. But the whole point of his piece of the upside down urinal and conceptual art in general is basically making the statement that everything is art and everyone's an artist,
Mhm.
and the act of creation and expressing is an integral part of like human beings and all this stuff.
Mhm.
Anyway, the point is that I became obsessed with the concept that art is constant
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about how to push the boundaries of our art. And I think that's what made it so easy for me to go from. So I sing, I dance. The thing that I'm best at is drawing and watercolor. But I think that's why it was so easy for me to kind of literally stumble into filmmaking with Kevin, because I like having a piece of equipment or a variety of pieces of equipment that can record so many different aspects of those other mediums of painting and drawing, of dancing, of singing, and like bring it all together. I think is what drew me so much to filmmaking and using filmmaking as like the best tool for, again, pushing those boundaries of what is art, what isn't art, who is an artist, like what is good art, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's what that's how I
Nice.
kind of have continuously progressed my passion for art and used it now for filmmaking.
Nice. I don't even know if I told you this when we met before, but I feel something similar for myself when it comes to filmmaking because I can draw really well. I can do a lot of different things, but I can draw really well. I can paint. I was into photography at one point, airbrushing. I played the clarinet in middle school. I don't consider myself a musician, but I played it in middle school. But I just love the arts. But I felt like with filmmaking, it gave me the most um, control and ability to really bring my ideas into the physical world that I wasn't able to have with a 2D medium like illustration, because it's like an audio visual experience. So I totally feel you in terms of like bringing all of your arts together. I want to backtrack a bit because you said conceptual art. Define what that is.
I love the fact that that's what you asked me, because the whole, like, so in high school we had a project that we had to pick a type of art, like a impressionist painting, or I don't even remember, a pop art or something. We had to pick one and then do a project that defined it. And basically conceptual art, what I learned based on the research I did at the time, is any kind of art that makes you think. And the way that it's taught, like not only in school but also like online when I was doing the research, is that it's specifically about the relationship between like the creator and the audience, the creator posing like a question and the audience kind of coming up with an answer or something in their minds. But I thought that that was too specific. And I basically came to the conclusion that conceptual art is art that makes you think, which means that all art is conceptual art, because all art makes you think. Every time you look at a piece of art or listen to a piece of art or experience it or feel it, whether you're like in dance or other movement, you're thinking, you're creating, you know, you're processing sensation. In which case all art is conceptual art. And in which case, because everything is art, everything that is created can be considered a piece of art. Everything is conceptual art. That's the paper I wrote.
Gotcha.
And my teacher at the time hated it and gave me a 0. Told me I was wrong. And I had to write the paper over again. And I ended up just picking a completely different subject because he just like would not accept my definition of conceptual art. So yeah, and I think that was like a really monumental, and continues to be a really monumental point in my art experience and artist experience, because it just like, again, it just continuously, I always come back to like, whenever somebody talks about you know, like whether or not this song is good or not, I always come back to like, does it push the boundaries of art? And that to me is what makes art good, is like, does it push the concept that it's talking about? And we can go further and further into, I could ramble on forever about
Well, let me
it.
say this then, from that, when you say does it enforce the concept, meaning is it effectively communicating the message that it's intended to communicate?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of part of that, because again, it's the original or like traditional definition of conceptual art is like that the creator is posing something and that the audience is responding. I think it's not as like linear or as like clear. I think it's about and how do I put this, like the art creates some sort of response. So what makes it good art is whether or not that response is deeply moving for the audience. And that's, again, really subjective, because some people would say, well, you know, one person might experience a piece of art as deeply moving and the rest of the world doesn't. And therefore it's bad art because it's only affecting one person. Or maybe it's impacting the whole world, but it's not impacting this one person. So that one person will say that it's bad art because it's not being impactful.
Gotcha.
But I think that that's precisely like the question that I like to dive into, and there is no right answer. And
right. It's all subjective based on the perception of the audience.
Yes.
Yeah. Not so much the artists themselves, but how the audience responds to that piece.
Exactly. And sometimes the creator can be their own audience as well, you know. I think if I produce a piece of art that I can like truly resonate with my own experience, if that makes any sense, then that would be good art. But sometimes I create something and I'm like, this doesn't mean anything to me anymore.
Gotcha.
And then I'm like, this isn't good anymore.
Gotcha.
So
that is so interesting. You should write a book on that.
I'll try. At some point or another in my life, I'm sure I'll try.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Okay, so how did you two connect, and how did GSO Vibes, how was it born?
Right. Well, the way that we know each other, like first and foremost, is that we both went to Weaver, and so did his younger sister, Kat, and she and I were in the same grade, and we were both visual artists. So I met Kevin by being Kat's friend.
Gotcha.
But the way that we started GSO Vibes was that because Kat was my friend, she also was my roommate at one point. And Kevin came over to hang out with Kat, and Kevin was filming something on his camera, and I was like, what are you doing there? And he was like, I'm just filming. And I was like, oh, you should teach me to do that sometime. And he was like, okay, I'll teach you right now. And I was like, right now? Like, what do you mean? And so then we started hanging out, and he would like show me how to use the camera and like all the different settings on it, and then he started like editing the footage that we'd get and put it into videos, and I was like, this is so cool. And so then I started inviting him to go to places with me in Greensboro, and I think one night we went to Shanks, and I was like saying hi to a bunch of people, and he was like, you have such a cool life. And I was like, nah, dude, Greensboro is just cool. And so that's how GSO Vibes was born. It's just like me being passionate about Greensboro, Kevin being passionate about the camera and filmmaking, and then us being passionate about like putting that together and creating stories out of it. So
that is such an interesting story.
Yeah.
So what was the first piece that you collaborated and created for GSO Vibes?
Well, one thing that I had been doing just as a videographer, I would go to a restaurant or a place with my camera and make a little video, and then I'd like give them a sample, kind of as a way to like drum up business. And I was trying to think of ways to do this more, kind of where I had like kind of like a series or something. So I think that the first time we made a video together was at McCool's. And then that was like we were just kind of playing around with the camera, and we kind of, that was our first sort of official episode, and that turned into the first official episode. But then I think we went to the Pizzeria L'Italiano on Elm Street, and we went in and we did an interview, and we shot some B-roll and threw it together. And at that point we were thinking, okay, well, if we have like a series, we can maybe pitch it to sponsors if that are interested in like promoting Greensboro. So what like the first organization that was interested in was Downtown Greensboro. So we kind of had we developed some interest, and kind of that gave us some momentum to, at this point where we have a season of 20 episodes that's ready to roll out with GSO Vibes.
So that would make sense, because the first two businesses that you did were downtown, McCall's and the pizzeria, right? So that would make sense that DJI would be interested to use this as a promotional tool for the organization and for the businesses downtown, right? I know that your second sponsor was the Chamber of Commerce, right? Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. So how did that relationship come about?
I think they reached out to us, if I'm not mistaken. I think probably Downtown Greensboro Incorporated, like somebody in DGI spoke to somebody in the chamber, and they were like, yeah, like GSO Vibes is cool, you should try it out, you know? and we had a meeting with one of the marketing representatives, and she was like, yeah, we want you to do GSO Vibes videos for our members. Nice. And that's how we ended up doing the Artist Bloc being one of them. Jim Gallucci, Transform GSO, and More Music are the four, right, that we did? So most of them are downtown businesses. For season one, most of them are downtown businesses, but the four that were Chamber of Commerce were chamber members.
Do the videos for the chamber, since you're working with the chamber and DGI, do they have to be people who are downtown in the chamber, or you can be downtown, or you can just be a member of the chamber?
You can be downtown or be a member of the chamber. I mean, it really just depends on the sponsor. So for example, Arts Greensboro or something were to sponsor us, then we would do like the people that they wanted us to do.
Gotcha.
Or the entities that they wanted us to do, just as an example.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
With this, are you trying to approach other organizations to work as sponsors, or are you good with the two that you have now? You kind of want to build and shift a bit? Like, what's the direction right now?
you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I could talk about it.
Yeah.
I like that question because we've been thinking a lot about what we're doing with GSO Vibes, and we've looked at we were at a time we had a like a booklet. We would go and pitch, come sponsor GSO Vibes. Like here's our rates per episode, and at this point we're trying to move towards crowdsourced funding, like Patreon, which you can have subscribers that give monthly, or Kickstarter for certain projects that like a film that where everyone can kind of pitch in for maybe some kind of if you have like a product, they'll pre-order it. We're and also grant writing, because we're trying to have as much of our own voice as we can, and not necessarily have to cater to any kind of organizations that are necessarily sponsors.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, we're slowly making that transition. I think that these are the things that we're working towards, just as far as steps that you can make as entrepreneurs in an art field. It requires kind of a balance.
Gotcha.
So the next season that we're working on is hopefully going to be specifically musicians. We're not like completely consolidated on what the season's going to be or who the artists are, but that's the plan, is to transition from businesses to musicians.
Gotcha.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I was thinking when you were talking, because I know right now you have sponsorships, and I know with sponsorships you have limitations that you wouldn't have when you begin to self-fund your business. What do you and let me backtrack that, because having sponsors is a blessing, especially as early as you got them in your situation. Yes, money's great. And it's good because, like you said, it does give you cushion to like breathe and think and really strategize about like your next approach and what you're trying to do. You mentioned applying for the grants. You mentioned Patreon. What are other things that you are planning out, or being very strategic about your approach in terms of creating revenue for the business once you move past the sponsorship component?
GSO Vibes is just one aspect of, like, I mean, I shouldn't say it's just one aspect. It is the main thing that we're focusing on right now. It is a brand, if you will. It is an idea. It is a platform for artists and musicians and other creatives. But our LLC is Lemon Time Studios.
Lemon Time Studios?
Lemon Time Studios.
Okay.
So that's the name of our company.
I gotcha.
And basically what our plan is in the long term is so GSO Vibes is this concept and idea and a film series and all this stuff. And then Lemon Time Studios is a videography service provider. So we create videos for clients. And Greensboro Chamber of Commerce is one of those clients, but we have clients who are friends. For example, one of our friends is an independent caterer, so we work with him to create videos for his independent catering company. We also have clients that are just regular people also starting up their own things, and they need video content. So my point is that Lemon Time Studios is creating videos for clients, and then the money that goes into Lemon Time Studios gets rechanneled into the brands that we want to develop. One of those brands is GSO Vibes. Another one of those brands would be like my personal brand. For example, Bailey the bus. I own a school bus and I want to renovate it, and that is going to be a brand in itself, because I want to record the process of Bailey becoming Bailey.
Right.
Kevin wants to develop a brand for himself that has to do with his guitar, both in performance and in the travels that he's done with guitar and with teaching guitar.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the like step by step, like where the money comes from and where the money goes and where we want it to go. Like kind of we were talking about, like sponsorships kind of limit you as to what content you can create. We want to create our own content, but there is some content that we have to create for others, and that generates some of the revenue.
Right.
Does this make sense?
It makes total sense. Okay. And I was thinking about that because myself as a filmmaker, that was a dilemma that I faced for a while. Is that when I got into it, I was just thinking as a creative, like I'm creating stuff for myself and for my own self-expression and things of that nature. But when you think about it as something that you're using to make money or as a professional or career, it can move beyond what you're creating for personal expression, because you have to create for other people. And sometimes when you do that, well, at least for me on that journey, at one point it was making me not love film anymore, because I wasn't creating for myself and my self-expression. I was creating for somebody else who didn't study film, who didn't care about art. You know what I'm saying? It was just like a marketing tool or whatever the case may be. And it was kind of taken away from that creative spirit within me. I mean, I have grown past that now, and I'm able to separate the two and understand that I have to create stuff for myself, and then I also have to create this to make money. But it was a process for me to get there. So the point of that is, I totally get what you're saying, because you're building a business, and the purpose of a business is to make money. You know what I'm saying? And even though your business is centered around your art, and your art naturally began as a form of self-expression. So I totally get what you're saying.
I feel like I learned that lesson like from Kevin. Actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to speak on it more, but that's something I wouldn't have thought about, like compartmentalizing personal art and professional art, essentially.
Yeah. Because it's hard. I like, if you're not, when you initially are an artist, you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna grow up and be an artist, make money from it, but you're not thinking about the type of compromises that you're gonna have to endure to do that. And you don't even like looking at quote unquote professional artists that we see on TV or out in the world. They're compromising too, to a certain degree. We just don't realize they're compromising it. Right. So yeah, I think that is a hard lesson to learn in your journey of becoming a professional artist, is that you do have to get to the place where you're making stuff for yourself over here, and then you making stuff over here to make money.
And it's
good.
Well, oftentimes that can be kind of a lifesaver, or it can be what you end up doing. Because if you're making videos for clients, making some promo videos, but then on the side you make some interesting series that people like, that's a great portfolio of work that will eventually attract the kind of support that you want if you continue with that habit.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another point, is that Lemon Time is something that we want to make into a community, like for all of our artist friends that want to participate. And this is just a really just like super recent idea that I had. So I haven't let go of my drawing and painting. I just am not making money off of it right now. And one idea that I have is that, like, you know, I record myself doing my drawings and paintings, but that in itself doesn't make money. And I can sell prints, but what can the prints be of? What if I'm making prints that are about Kevin's guitar teaching, or about my friend's choir teaching, or about our other friends like food catering, you know? Because then the people who, the audiences of these other entities, whether it be friends or companies or whatever, want to purchase products or merchandise or support those entities or those people, can also support me by purchasing the art. And some of the money goes to myself, some of the because I made the art, some of the money goes to the person because it's about them, and some of the money goes to the company, you know, to continue like stimulating that, because the company is essentially sponsoring all of it.
Yeah. Because you're speaking a lot about series with your business, and I know you do have your videography services over here. Is the goal to eventually focus on creating more content for the channel, a YouTube channel, because you're trying to build up a YouTube channel
for GSO Vibes, or
well, okay, I take that back. GSO Vibes is his own entity. Then the other series that you're making, they're their own entities as well. So they're all going to be their own channels, right? Does that make sense? Okay, never mind. I'm thinking like grouping them all together. All the videos will be on the same channel. If that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, okay. The plan then is GSO Vibe is kind of like a pilot program to figure out the approach, what you're trying to do, get the strategy down, pack, and then you can take that strategy and replicate it on the other brands.
You got it.
Yes, gotcha. Yep. Okay.
But we want to keep GSO Vibes going because it's so cool.
Yes, it is very cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice. What have you encountered so far that has been challenging with you building up this brand of GSO Vibes?
I would say the most challenging thing for me is just after only being a filmmaker for 2 years, just the organization of everything, from just having lots of files, because I'll go out and I'll shoot, and I'll at the beginning of filmmaking, I think it's important to shoot a lot, because you're learning what looks good and what doesn't, and being also having to be getting out of that phase and into the business person phase of okay, you go in, you have your shot list, you get your shots, you organize your files afterwards, you have a whole workflow. You have, if you have you're usually dealing with clients, so you have a client workflow. You have to, reply to emails and have materials for them, pitch things, and so developing all of that, it's all just new. So that's probably one of the biggest things for me, is just getting my hands into the kind of the organization side of running the business, because at first I was kind of just winging it with the camera, and I can do this for you, and now it's becoming more and more sort of honed, which is relieving a lot of stress.
Yes, organization is the key, man. Yes, especially when you are like working with a bunch of files, and like I don't know if she told you, but I teach filmmaking and graphic design. It's like, I tell them with editing in particular, like the key to editing is organization and keyboard shortcuts, and that'll help you edit quickly. Yes. But like when those files are all over the place, it becomes so much. Like, but when you have them organized, like, okay, this is my video folder, this is my audio folder, this is I use Premiere, these are my Premiere files. Like, it just helps you move quickly with it. Yeah. And then even with running a business, like, you have to be organized. You have to have like a plan of action. Like, winging it is not a plan. Like, even though like winging it is the plan, winging it is not a plan. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to have like a plan of action to execute, to move forward, because you're gonna mess yourself up eventually if you don't have it. So I totally agree with you, man. Yeah. What has been something that's been challenging for you so far in this journey?
So this is not a slight at Kevin, but organization is not a problem for me. I'm overly organized. I'm so organized that like I have too many files, and too many folders, and then I realize, wait a minute, like these folders can be consolidated. Yes. And the fact that I go through that thought process goes to show like I'm so organized, I'm organizing my organization. Like and it can actually be hindering. And that's I think the challenge that I experienced in the beginning of filmmaking is that Kevin would just like go for it. He would just slap all that footage into the timeline on Adobe Premiere and just start clipping things, and it would be like on like a bunch of different layers and levels, and I was just like, what's going on? Me, on the other hand, I have a very specific process of like how to go through footage, what I take notes on like how I'm gonna edit before I edit, and so because I know that it's so tedious and meticulous for me, because I'm so like step by step, so organized, that I just don't do it. Like I just like I like avoid it at all costs, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna edit today, and then I go, like, I sit down on my laptop and I like go through my emails, and I just keep avoiding it. So that was like the first like challenge, but then the second challenge is remaining consistent about it, because you find new ways to do stuff, and that's great, but sometimes you just have to follow through with what you started, because I'm so organized and so like focused on like having the perfect process for the product. I'll just like scrap everything I did for no reason. Like I'll just be like, I don't, you know what, I'm starting over. And like, I'm like, and then I look back at like the original work and I'm like, this was fine. Like, why did I do that?
Yes. So we've come to the part in the show that I like to call the playbook, because you're giving people the plays, the play-by-play to get into this industry, in this particular profession. So I want you to give the people 5 practical steps to get into becoming a artist of a digital medium, because I don't want to like label it filmmaker, because I think you all encompass a whole lot as artists, so we just say artists within this digital medium of video production.
Do you want me to say them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I'll like pitch in on each one. Maybe.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say them first, and then we can go back over them more.
Okay.
Because we kind of sat down and define, or determine these 5. The first one, I would say, or we would say, identify your values and goals.
Okay.
Second is establish an entity or measures of protection, like an LLC, or figure out what it means to be a sole proprietor, that kind of thing, or the taxes necessary to be a freelancer. The third is to develop, create, establish supporting relationships. And then the fourth is to specify and continuously progress your product or service. And then finally is to be patient and enjoy the work. So those are their 5 steps.
Nice.
And we'll go back. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go back over them.
Okay.
So, starting.
Because I had questions, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll start with the identify values. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, even in life as people, like, when you're trying to figure out, like, what do I do with myself? Who do I want to be? You have to kind of figure out, like, what you value and what your goals are to embody those values. And so with your business or with an entity, like an entrepreneurship type of situation, you kind of have to do the same thing. And you do have to kind of separate yourself from it, because, you have your work, you have yourself, and then you have, like, applying the work in yourself in a business context. And that is what you have to identify. What is the value and goal of that entity? So just using GSO Vibes as an example, like, my value in life, me personally, is to, like, adventure and explore. At least that's one of them. That's not the same as GSO Vibes necessarily. GSO Vibes is much more about community and about collaboration. So does that make sense? And then again, like, if I want to adventure and explore, that's why I purchased a school bus. GSO Vibes being about community is the goal is about is to establish connections between entities, between other businesses and other people. So that's one, is identify your values and goals. The second is oh gosh, I forgot it already.
Okay, well, hold on, because you're saying identify your values and goals, but you're also saying them specifically for the business and then specifically for yourself. Are you saying it's important to understand both and to understand the place of both when identifying? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Because they can overlap, but they don't need to overlap, because it's a particular GSO Vibes is a particular brand, so you can't necessarily bring your personal self into that.
To use an example of, like, not accomplishing that, I have always wanted to sell my prints, sell physical art of drawings and paintings and stuff. But I haven't figured out why I want to sell them, or how to sell them, or how they play into my personal value. Like, drawing and painting and then selling those drawings and paintings don't really fit into the value of adventuring and exploring, which is a big one of my personal, right? So because I haven't figured that out, I haven't really pursued a practice in that. Does that make sense? If, for example, I identify that my value for and this is just an example, I haven't necessarily decided on this, but if I feel that the reason for selling prints of mine is because I want to share my experience exploring and adventuring, that is the value that I would base my business model off of. Is because then the content, instead of it being about, cats and dogs and flowers, is going to be about the landscapes I see when I go out on my school bus, for example. Does that make sense?
Right. It does make sense. Yes, totally. Yeah. Did you want to add something? I'm sorry.
Well, I think that it's also a pretty important conversation to have with yourself as you, in multiple times throughout having a business, because you might start out just saying, I love using a camera, and I have some people that need work, so I'll start a business, and then that picks up, and then you're doing a bunch of client work, which you're making money with with the camera or with your art, but it's not necessarily what you want to do. And if you continually ask what your values are, you can kind of separate that and have a place for your art that's personal, like we talked about before, having like a personal practice, but also it helps you to create a business that gets you doing what you want to work that you enjoy.
Right.
So so having those goals is important. And then towards the sort of the brand development part of your business, people will relate with those values if they're clear, and if they're genuine. So if you realize what feels genuine and in practice expressing it in a terms of like a brand, or brand is really just like how it's like the personality that you're using to connect with people with a certain idea, I guess. So that's kind of the idea of starting out with your values.
And I was going to add to that, because you made me think about it as you were talking. I think it's also important for people that even though you have to like make money and do what you have to do to make money, you don't have to do everything to make money. You know what I'm saying? All money isn't good money. So even when shooting for other companies or doing that, make sure that's still in alignment with like make sure you can sleep at night, basically, with what you're doing. Don't do anything that's going to like really compromise your integrity as a person. I just want to add that in there, because I think that also goes with like how you were saying, understand who you are and be very clear about it. If you do understand who you are, you very clear about it, you can't do certain things without it messing with you, at night and messing with your integrity. So I just want to throw that out there.
No, I like that.
Yeah,
precisely.
Yeah. Okay, step 2.
Step 2 was to establish a structure or protective measures. And do you want to talk about, I think you should talk about it first, because you started out as a freelancer before we started doing this.
Yeah.
So I think you should talk about your experience as a freelancer.
Okay. So Lemon Time Studios started out, the first kind of iteration was Lemon Time Media. And it was kind of my freelance name. I just, I had a business card. I would do basically contract, like work agreements under like with myself as a sole proprietor. And in a lot of cases it was not even having work agreements, but people were just would pay me for a video. And then this progressed into us, when I met Andrea, she was really strict with me that we got to start an LLC, we got to have like real contracts and like and she's like, and like keep the numbers a lot better, and like a lot more spreadsheets, a lot like our Google Docs is looks amazing. We've got like workflow software that we're using together. So I started out without a lot of these structures, and it did make it kind of, I mean, it wasn't what I wasn't making enough to sustain myself, and I was doing a lot of work, and it was just a slow process of realizing what I needed to do in order to make it kind of more streamlined, so that I could be a reliable business that is consistent with what they can put out.
Totally agree with that. Thank God for Andrea.
And I would not even claim to know all that much about the different options. We went with an LLC because we were 2 people for one, and but like I don't know enough. I don't know a whole lot about doing like taxes as a freelancer, for example. We will be learning about how to do taxes as an LLC this coming. Well, and Kevin was actually the one that was like, maybe we should plan a consultation with like an accountant or something.
We definitely need to do that.
You know what, Kevin, kudos to you for that one. So yeah, but like even if you're just selling your, like even if you're just freelancing and like selling your work, like he said, like you just verbally agree, like, oh, like you want a video, like here's a video and you pay me money. Even in those circumstances, like it's totally normal to have a super small, simple written agreement. And I say this like to a lot of my friends. I'm saying this because I have plenty of friends who have dived headfirst into like selling their work, and then they turn around and realize that like they didn't cover their intellectual property, so they lost it. They didn't have a formal agreement of the money, so they didn't get paid. Their work got even like they got paid, they still have the intellectual property, but their work got reproduced in such a way that they didn't want it to be, or got edited in a way that they didn't want it to be. Like those are situations that happen if you don't like prepare yourself for the legal stuff and the technical stuff and the money stuff. And that's like a really important thing to do.
Very
like,
much
first
so.
and foremost.
Very much so. Totally agree with that. Especially if you like taking yourself seriously as a business person. Yes, totally agree with that.
Right. And especially because, like, I mean, you know, if you can afford to, like, basically lose money and lose your intellectual property, which some people do have that privilege, then it's it's an enjoyable process to kind of flail through it. But those of you who want to like do it and know that like if you put money, if your hard-earned money is going into something and you need it to make your money back, then like it's really important to have those things.
Right.
So.
I agree. All right. Step 3, I'm loving it.
What is step 3?
Relationships.
The relationships. Yeah. Do you want to go or do you want me to?
You could go.
So it can be, when we talk about relationships, there are personal relationships and there are professional relationships. I'll talk about the personal first. Pretty simple. Like, my mom is my go-to in terms of like when I need to talk about business. In terms of like when I need to seek help in business, I have a mentor, and that is my mom. She is a lawyer, so
nice.
helps me out a lot, you know. But it's like an established thing in my mind, you know. And I have other mentors, but it's really good to like just kind of have like this established like relationship with a particular person that you can go to for questions about business stuff, about legal stuff, about the money stuff. So that's like one personal. Another one is about like troubles in your like the struggle that you are experiencing in your business. It's good to have like a core friend that like you basically like have a conversation with them that's like, can I always come to you, you know? And typically people have like a friend that they could do that anyway with, but some people don't really, either they don't get business stuff, so like it's kind of like useless to talk to them because they can't like really provide feedback. Some people just don't, it's really tedious things to listen to, so they don't want to hear it. So yeah, that's what I mean about personal, is having those specific people. And then professional is about once you begin to establish a relationship, whether with a client or with a sponsor or with a networking person, it's important to remain consistent with those relationships. And I will admit that I struggle with that, because since it is not a personal relationship, it's hard to it's not that there isn't personability in professional relationships, but because there is like that filter of like, this is business, like it kind of makes you want to only talk to them when you're like either pitching or asking, if that makes any sense.
Right. It makes total sense.
And so, and it's important to like remember like these are human beings too, and so you know, and like you want to develop a relationship like with people that you're working with. Right. It's just like in a workplace, like you if you're I've worked in restaurants most of my life, and like if your fellow servers, like if you never talk to them about anything outside of like, pass me this, pass me that, you know, like did you get your table, like they're not going to like you, they're not going to be chill with you at work. So it's important to do the same in terms of like, you know, your emails, like they don't need to be, I struggle with this, I want to be very like, this is what we're doing, you know, very robotic. And Kevin's like, maybe like change that point period into an exclamation point. And I'm like, do I sound mean? So yeah, so that's what I mean with like professional relationships. Yeah. And if you want to add to all of that, you're welcome.
Well, I'd say as far as personal relationships go, your circle of friends or whoever you spend the most time with are gonna really have a lot of influence. It depends kind of on your where you're at with your journey, because maybe you don't want to have everybody doing the same thing as you do it when you're working, but especially in the beginning, it's super critical to learn from. We for the first time we went onto a independent film set, and it was just really amazing to just learn from other videographers and make friends with people who they just talk, you know, their daily lives are very similar, and it's cool to see. It kind of helps you to with the grind when you might be not. I think we both kind of haven't had a lot of filmmaker like influences comparatively, to someone who's been in the industry. So so making your circle kind of more centered around the industry that you're in is super helpful to kind of get your mind always thinking about it.
Yeah. And it helps you stay motivated because you're like around
Yeah.
like-minded individuals. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I struggle myself with relationships, like continuing to cultivate relationships, because it's like I'm not a talker.
Yeah.
Like if I need something, I'm gonna ask you for it. But it's like some people just love to talk. Like they're just people. You know what I'm saying? So they just love to talk and they just call you all the time. It's like I struggle with that myself, and I'm working on that myself.
Well, I think that's actually a really great point. Like, it's okay if that's who you are, and that's great if you can find other people who are like that. Like, we would do great if you just being like, all right, like we know that we don't need to like call all the time, or
right?
Whatever. But like, because like with certain artist friends, specifically visual artist friends of mine, visual artists, because typically visual art is very individual. I think can relate to like being more isolated. And so like a lot of when it comes to those friends that don't necessarily want to have like constant social interaction to maintain that professional relationship, those visual artist friends of mine, we're kind of at an understanding that's like, if we want to like do art collabs together or like ask each other art questions that are kind of like more in a professional sense, we can do that without having to like do anything else.
Right.
But you have to have that established with a person, and maybe that requires explicit communication, maybe that's an understanding. But like you said, like it's difficult for me because I'm like when I enter into something very businessy, I want to remain like very businessy, and
right, because you don't want to mess anything up. You want to like preserve the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it gets tricky when you start
playing
with that line.
Like...
Nice. Okay, that was number 3. So number 4.
Number 4 is specifying and continuously progressing your product and service.
Okay.
Do you want to start? You want me to start?
You can start.
Okay. So, especially when you're starting out, it's great to remain open about what it is that you're doing in filmmaking, but in general, like I'm going to use, I'll use filming as an example. Like, when I first started out with Kevin, in my mind, I was like, we're just doing GSO Vibes. Like, that's what we're doing. And then Kevin was like doing other stuff. And I was like, wait, like, I kind of want to like experience more of that,
Yeah.
And then I realized like, wait, why am I narrowing myself to this particular type of filmmaking? And that's when I decided to actually like shoot my own vlog and kind of having that open-mindedness in the beginning of like seeing what comes, I think is really important and something I didn't like understand the value of in the beginning. But it's also important to like, as you get more and more acquainted with the work that you're doing, both like in shooting and in video editing and in the administrative aspect and in like merchandise, for example, begin to narrow down like and say no to things that you don't need to be doing. So like we, maybe we'll be selling like GSO Vibes mugs, but right now we're going to focus on stickers and t-shirts. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to be putting GSO Vibes on everything because that's a lot of expense. Same thing with like videography service. Me personally, I can't speak for Kevin because we're also, we also do our own thing. But like me personally, like I'm not going to travel outside of North Carolina to shoot things for other people. If I'm traveling to LA and I'm going to shoot things there, but it's for me. Right. Because that's a travel expense that I don't want to have to account for right now. Right. So that's what I have to say about like continuously progressing or becoming specific, but also continuously progressing in like what service and product you're providing. Gotcha. You wanna add or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this is one. There's a couple aspects of this, but I think one idea is just developing and having a great like portfolio. If you're talking about steps to having a successful business, that first impression where people are going to your website, you want to kind of continually make that as impressive as possible, and model after successful websites, or you know, pick who you kind of want to become, and then look at all the different things that they're doing, and you can model after that to kind of improve your quality, and it's kind of as long as you keep working and trying to learn from other people, and which could be YouTube, it could be working with people in the industry, but just improving your product. I think also in terms of videography, improving our product has been a big part of that, has been like how we interact with the client, or with whoever wants a video or a sponsorship, how we have a workflow and things kind of prepared for them, and documents, just all of that is also continual improving on your service.
Yeah.
So.
I agree with that. It made me think of two things. One was the concept of being a inch wide but a mile deep, as opposed to being a mile wide but an inch deep, in terms of like focusing on how you said right now you just focus on t-shirts and stickers, as opposed to t-shirts, stickers, hats, boots, whatever, an array of things. Just narrowing down and focusing on that. And now too, I'm thinking about like the concept of jack of all trades, master of none, because you're just trying your hand at everything instead of focusing on one particular thing.
Yeah.
And then also made me think about one of my professors in grad school, Holly Garima. He would say, you want to be a filmmaker, you got to watch movies, you got to make movies. And I think a lot of times people get like analysis paralysis, like they're just constantly studying the material, but you're not actually producing anything. And you're studying it, but you're not studying it like looking at it, like how you say go to a website and look at a website. You're just like reading in the book how to make a website. So I think that can be applied to anything that you're trying to do in life. If you want to do something, you need to practice it, do it yourself, and they need to see other people who are doing it. And you can mimic it until you can formulate your own style and your own way of doing it. So yeah, love that advice as well. So,
trades, master of none.
yes. Okay, step 5. When the last lap of the race.
What's step 5?
Be patient and enjoy the work.
Yes.
I know it's kind of like silly to end the steps on like something so like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
But I talked about this with you at the interview, for GSO Vibes, that I got frustrated, or I was getting frustrated, and I felt like, we have to do these like, we have to like do specific people, like we can't even like pick our own people to like interview, or like we can't even increase like how much we're charging right now, because we're still like we're still like within this contract or something. I don't know. I just like was frustrated that we weren't moving forward as quickly. And then you told me the story of the book of Job.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? Like it was kind of like a reminder in my head to be patient, and to know that like I'm putting my work in, but I'm not entitled to be so far ahead. I mean, I've been doing this less than a year. Like I've been in filmmaking for less than a year. Why would I be any farther than a year's worth of credibility, of money, of those relationships and networking. And also like enjoy the work. And we've talked about this throughout like all of tonight. Enjoying the work is really important. At one point or another, again, I was doing so much work for GSO Vibes and for Lemon Time, and I wasn't doing anything creative for myself. That eventually, that's when I did my own vlog, and I separated the personal videography or personal filmmaking and the professional filmmaking. And that ironically allowed me to enjoy the work that I was doing for GSO Vibes again. And obviously that's like a very specific like situation, but kind of just like having those mental reminders of like why you're doing that. And that's why it's again important to have those values established, because then you can always go back to that value. Like, why am I doing this again? It's like, oh, right. It's because we care about the community, and we want to provide the community with this platform. So those are the two things: is be patient, know that you're making progress, even if the progress isn't super visible right now.
Right.
And enjoy the work find ways to enjoy it, remember your values, and separate your personal fun from the professional fun. So,
I dig that, man.
yeah.
Oh, what's you?
Yeah, I would say that the patience as a mindset is really helpful if you're trying to put out your own work.
I just want to pause on that one.
Yeah.
That was like gold right there. Patience as a mindset.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, keep going.
So if you're thinking about the short term, you're really thinking about, oh, I put this video out of myself speaking or something on online. You're thinking about how that's going to be received. Mm-hmm. But if you're thinking about the long term, you're thinking about, how this video is going to build on, you'll make a better video, that'll kind of lead somewhere else, and then you'll be making some really amazing things that you couldn't really imagine in the first place. So seeing your work, if one of your issues is having kind of that paralysis of creating, mm-hmm. Seeing your work as like just a practice and just continually doing it. Mm-hmm. And it sometimes for me is a problem because I'll take too many photos, take too much video. But I like to go out and just shoot sometimes, just have the camera in hand and continually be sort of engaging with that. So that's one important thing, especially if you're starting out, for your mindset of putting out your work.
Yeah, I like it. You just said too, seeing your work as practice. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's deep too. I think sometimes you do get caught up in like, it got to be perfect, it got to be right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, it's a process, and you do it, you learn from it, you grow, you create your next piece, you do it, you learn from it, you grow. So I never thought about that, seeing your work as a practice, like constant evolution of growth throughout your process of creating. Yeah, I'm so happy. Oh, I've learned so much from you all tonight. I really have. I love it. Okay, so you've given the 5 practical steps for GSO Vibes course, because you are a professor of the GSO Vibe course of how to do this thing. So tonight, what's the homework that people have to do before they come to your class tomorrow? Because you just gave them the syllabus. What's the homework tonight? Yeah,
so the concept is based kind of on developing a brand. Mm-hmm. What are the different steps that need to go into that? Mm-hmm. There's like creating a logo and learning your what colors work and what fonts you want to use, and mm-hmm. So this is our assignment. Mm-hmm. is to create a plan of what you want to put out.
Content calendar is like super big for anyone who, and when I say content calendar, it sounds like really like official or whatever, but it's really just, like you said, planning out what it is that you're going to put out into the world. Mm-hmm. And you do have to already have like you said, the logos and the fonts and basically like the brand that you want to include. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
the brand that you want to include in that content. So what I would say is, I mean, it always depends on like what kind of medium you're doing, but you say that you're going to have this many pieces of content. Let's say that it's 10, right? I want to put out 10 pieces of content over the course of 6 months. And those 10 pieces of content are 10 different videos, right? I'm just using filmmaking. So you first determine what do you need to do to create the videos, right? Like what to shoot, to edit. And you go through each video that you're the concept for each video. You storyboard each video. Once you storyboard the video, you then know which people you need to contact. Do you need to schedule things with those people, or do you just need those people to send you certain things, like interviews or like photos of theirs? You know what I mean? Do you need materials? Do you have those materials? Can you borrow them? Can you rent them? Do you have to buy them? Do you need to plan a budgeting scheme in order to purchase them? What tasks need to be accomplished? Like, do you need to shoot and edit, or do you already have content like ready? Like, are you, like, for example, if the video is going to be like a slideshow of sorts, and it's going to be pictures of an artist's work, then a lot of the content is already made. The artist just has to send it to you. So you determine that for each video, and then you schedule it across the course of either a month or a week, depending on how much work it's going to take. And so let's say, again, it's the 10 videos. If I know that for each video, it's going to take me over 2 weeks to gather all the content and just have it, and then another week to edit it all, right? Then you know that it's going to take 3 weeks for each video just to create it. And then you want to schedule when you're going to put it out and where you're going to put it out. Let's use Instagram as an example. It's pretty simple because it's like one post, right? You determine what the post is going to be. Like, are you going to, is it going to be the video itself? In that case, it's going to be 10 posts. But if it's going to be 3 posts per video, for example, then you need to determine what each of the posts is going to be about that video. Is it going to be a picture? Is it going to be a video? Or is it going to be a graphic on Canva, for example? So then you determine each of those things, and then you put it out on an actual calendar, and you say, okay, like if it's going to take me 4 weeks for the creation of one video, then it's going to take me 10 months. I mean, I'm over exaggerating, right? 10 months to create all 10 videos. And that means that only after the first 2 or 3 months can I start posting the first few videos. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But that's the kind of like, those are the kinds of questions you have to ask yourself in order to plan out the content you're going to produce. And why are we talking about content? Because that's the majority of how we promote things now. Whether you're a filmmaker or a maker, like let's say you do pottery, or you like make prints. Let's say you're a guitar teacher. One way or another, in order for you to generate business, in order for your customers to actually see what they can buy from you, you're probably going to have to use the internet to promote yourself. If there's anyone out there that can go to businesses and hand them flyers and that's how you're making money, call me. I would love to hear your story. So yeah, that's what we mean in terms of like homework. If you're really serious about getting there, that's how much work it takes. And that's why it's important to like maybe have a team. And in that case, it changes like the scope of the content, because you have to like see like if the team is interested in creating that with you. Right. Do you have to account for that the team's like preferences and stuff like that? But yeah, so that's the really big homework assignment that we have.
Yeah, it's all good. That's a whole prerequisites course.
Yes.
Before they can even get to your course. You got like a high level course, but I like it though. And I totally agree. I mean, because I think that people really don't think about the details and how much it really takes to get things going. It's just like, oh, I want to make a video. It's like, no, it's a process. You have to have a plan of action. I mean, it's a process to just create the content in general, let alone now you have to make up a process to market the content that you have in order to get the audience to come back. So I think that was very real advice, you know what I'm saying? And a very real piece of homework for them to do before they actually come to the course and do that. So yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all so much for coming on the show. I'm so inspired. I've learned so much. I think the people are going to love this content. I'm just happy.
Thanks,
yes. Well, thank you too again for coming on the show. I really appreciate you coming out. And this has been another edition of the Artist Bloc podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Schuler. You can follow me on social media, Instagram and Facebook, not TikTok. Well, don't do TikTok yet. Anyway, you can follow me on social media at Patricia Schuler, and we'll catch you next time.